They're pictures that shine a light on a future king, yet feel like a massive contrast to the image Prince William wants to show.
When a world-famous pianist publicly dares Prince William to perform live at one of the most prestigious concert halls in the world, no one thinks he'll actually say yes. But behind palace doors, something unusual begins to unfold. Why did the future king accept? What was he really trying to prove? And to whom? This isn't the story you think it is. The challenge to the public people have always been interested in the British royal family. People are often both interested in and critical of every move, expression, and choice that its members make. Prince William, who is now the Prince of Wales, has been seen as the steady one among them for a long time. Many people think of him as calm, controlled, and obedient because he is the heir apparent to the throne. People are paying more attention to William since Queen Elizabeth II died. With his wife, Catherine, Princess of Wales, by his side, he has become more like a future king. But something strange happened at Kensington Palace one evening that neither royal watchers nor the public expected. It got a lot of attention. The Harmony for Hope Gala was supposed to be an everyday event. It was a fancy evening held inside the historic walls of Kensington Palace to raise money and knowledge for music education for young people across the Commonwealth. International leaders, musicians, philanthropists, and well-known people in the arts were on the guest list. The night was meant to bring people together and celebrate, not cause trouble. As expected, Prince William and Princess Catherine showed up with the class they always show. He wore a standard black tuxedo, and she wore a simple, classic evening dress. People know the royal couple for their poise when they move, and they used it to meet guests and talk to scholarship winners. Under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, photographers caught smiles, short talks, and beautiful table settings. A soft arrangement of strings played in the background, going well with the event's polished atmosphere. The mood changed, though, during the last part of the night. The person in charge of the event took the mic and thanked everyone who took part. The way he spoke was relaxed, polite, and expected. Next, the night's last artist, Lang Lang, was introduced. Lang Lang is a famous Chinese pianist known for both his technical skill and his expressive style. After the cheers died down, Lang Lang took the stage with ease. He looked good in a black suit and greeted the crowd before adjusting the microphone. Many people in the room were shocked by what happened next. His tone changed. It wasn't mean, but it was clear and intentional. Lang Lang started by thinking about the times he had played on stages all over the world. He recognized the evening's purpose, to support music education, and talked about how important it is to really get involved with the arts. But then he said something more harsh. He said he was worried about the fact that powerful people usually support the arts by giving money, but not by taking part in them directly. Even though this response seemed general at first, it became more specific when Lang Lang looked at the royal table. He said something politely but clearly challenging to Prince William. He asked when the last time was that a royal had played music, not for a function or as a sign, really played. Then, in front of the important people and under the soft lights of Kensington's Hall, he invited everyone. Lang Lang asked Prince William to perform with him at the Royal Albert Hall in a month. He didn't want it to be perfect or even hard. He said, just one piece. Any piece. The offer wasn't meant to be funny or testy. It felt more like a dare, but it had a tone of earnest expectation. Could the future king take a break from duty and enter the open world of art? This was what Lang Lang wanted to know. The room stopped. There was no laughter or quick reaction. There was a stunned silence. It's impossible for even the most experienced royal watchers to have seen this coming. The cameras didn't move, and the flashes were momentarily forgotten. At the royal table, Prince William gave a small smile and tightened his mouth just enough for people who were paying close attention to notice. Even though Princess Catherine's face didn't change much, it was clear that she too had been caught off guard. Lang Lang didn't say anything else or push the issue any further. He went back to the piano and started to play instead. He picked a piece by Rachmaninoff that was both technically difficult and emotionally charged. It was full of power and sensitivity. It looked like he had been playing music for a long time because of how smoothly his fingers moved across the keys. The crowd went wild with applause when he was done. But the subject had already changed. As soon as the last glass of champagne was poured and everyone went back to talking, whispers quickly spread through the room. A famous pianist had just invited the future King of England to a public show. Was it all just for fun, or was it a friendly jab at someone? What's more, would Prince William answer? Soon after the show, the royal couple quietly left the event. There was no public word. Several people close to the court said that the challenge had not been thrown out, though. In fact, something had changed behind the scenes. That night didn't end with a royal answer, but it was the start of a private choice that would grow. It wasn't the song itself that made the moment so important. It was what it meant. The government is full of symbols, rules, and traditions on purpose. Its members almost never do things that could be seen as risky or unpolished or step outside of their normal jobs. Lang Lang didn't ask Prince William to act like a royal, though. It told him to be a person and make songs because he wanted to, not because he had to. A lot of people thought the moment was awkward, but interesting. Many people had different opinions on whether Lang Lang had gone too far. Some people thought it was wrong to put the prince on the spot. Others thought it was a unique and welcome task that could make the monarchy more human in a time when connecting with the public is more important than ever. In the days that followed, news sites were cautious about what they said about what happened. Royal reporters made guesses, and people on social media took the story in a lot of different ways. Still, the palace had not confirmed it. But something had started behind the smooth surface. Palace sources say that Prince William went to his private study later that night and went back to a part of the palace he hadn't been to in years. It would get easier to remember what happened next over time. But there was already a spark. The private battle. Most of the people who went home from the Harmony for Hope Gala remembered how great Lang Lang's show was. But inside Kensington Palace, there was something else that lingered. An unexpected problem that Prince William had to solve. Even though he didn't answer right away, his face, which was quickly caught on camera, showed that he was paying attention. The news media talked about the idea of a royal show in their stories, but William didn't say anything. Still, on the inside, a choice had started to take shape. In the late evening, Prince William went for a walk by himself in a part of the palace he didn't usually go to. He was away from the formalities and grand rooms. The light was dim in the quiet hallway that went to what used to be the nursery. After some work, the room was turned into a simple reading nook, but it still had hints of youth. There is old wallpaper, worn-out books, and an upright piano at the far end of the room. It had been there for many years. That's all there was to the piano. Its surface had worn down over time and the keys had changed color a little. There was dust on top of the bench, and when William sat down, it made a noise. He slowly pressed one key. It sounded rough and out of tune, like a broken G that hadn't been played in years. He gave a small smile, not because it sounded good, but because it did. He hadn't played those keys in over 20 years. William had taken piano classes at Ludgrove as a child. Ludgrove is a prep school known for its structure and tradition. Miss Dempsey, his teacher, was strict but kind. She had silver hair and a quiet love of music. She had told him before, "You play like someone who listens to the spaces between the notes." He didn't know what she meant at the time. Another memory came back to me. The princess, his mother, sat at the piano with him and his brother Harry. It was always nice to be around her, and her laughing was like a melody in and of itself. She didn't play hard pieces, she just played easy songs that were meant to make them laugh. However, the way she played without any stress or show stuck with him more than any lesson. She had said that music is where feelings go when words aren't enough. After all these years, that image was louder than Lang Lang's challenge when I was sitting there. The performance at the Royal Albert Hall wasn't just for show or to make a point. It had become more personal in some way. William called his top secretary when he picked up the phone. He told Simon straight out, "I need a piano tech here tomorrow, and find someone quick and quiet who can teach me." There was a pause on the other end. May I ask why, sir? I just took up a challenge, William said. I also need to remember what I was like before. The tech showed up the next day. The piano was checked out, cleaned, tuned, and given some small repairs. A few keys were changed, and the inside was tidied up. In the background, William and his team looked for a teacher. Not a famous person or someone with a PR angle, but a real teacher. Someone who could really help him get his skills back, not just for show. When people were asked several times, the same name kept coming up: Sir Edward Avery. Someone once said that Sir Edward was a lot like Vladimir Horowitz as a performance pianist. He played all over Europe before he had a mild stroke that ended his career. Since then, he had turned down every chance to go back on stage or teach. People knew him for being private, tongue-tied, and closed off. But something about the request from the king interested him. A quiet black car pulled up to a side door of Kensington Palace 3 days after the gala. No public access and no cameras. Sir Edward walked out with his coat zipped up and his face hidden. Of course, he was older and moved more slowly now, but there was still something exact about the way he walked. William was waiting inside in the music room. He wasn't wearing a jacket and had his arms rolled up and his collar open. It felt casual but important at the same time. There were no nods or introductions beyond what was necessary when Sir Edward walked in. He told them, "You asked for a teacher." Why? William didn't think twice about answering. Why? Because I've been pushed. In public. I also don't want to shame the memory of someone who thought I could play. It was your mother, Sir Edward told her. There was no question. William no digged it. When Sir Edward got close to the piano, he ran his fingers along the edge. When was the last time you did a real practice? Maybe 11 years old, William said. In that case, your muscle memory is gone. Okay. Let's start over. William sat down when he pointed to the bench. The king said, C major scale. Let's look at what's left. The way William's hands moved was slow and awkward. He ran off time, his arms were stiff, and he missed notes. He looked up with a sheepish look after 2 tries. Sir Edward let out a soft sigh. You play like a man with a big name. Too careful. They care too much about how it looks. William gave a small smile. All my life, I've asked for permission. The teacher yelled, Then stop! The piano doesn't bow down to you. After that, the lessons really got going. They were tough. After only a few minutes, William's fingers hurt. As time went on, scales turned into drills, and drills into pieces that tested both feeling and memory. There were no extra breaks or lenient punishments. Sir Edward was honest and straightforward. He told William, If you're serious, I can teach you enough to make it through the stage. But it will take all of your free time. William said, You'll have them. All of them. William kept his promise and changed his whole routine. Palace staff made time when they could. There were longer short breaks between talks. A few lunches were moved or quietly canceled. William went back to playing the piano in the evenings, after work was over and the kids were asleep. Always there, Sir Edward was on time, ready, and either carrying a stopwatch or drinking black tea while he waited. You're still being too careful, he'd say. Music isn't a news story. There is a chance. William was slowly starting to get it. It wasn't just physical pressure, it was also mental strain. It took giving up control to play music well, especially in public. It meant being open and honest, which wasn't usually possible in royal life. He thought about his mother when he was alone, especially late at night. She wasn't a great player, but she was free to play. His goal was not to master something, but to find value in life. The music room was more than just a place to practice over the weeks. It turned into a place where William could get away from family rules and focus on something more personal. Scales and arpeggios could be heard in the palace's quieter sections. There was no press or cameras, just the regular beat of someone trying to remember a part of himself. The people waking up. Though Prince William kept his promise to practice the piano for hours behind closed doors, people outside were starting to notice. Things were pretty calm for a few days after the Harmony for Hope Gala. The royal press office didn't say anything, and most news outlets had already moved on to their normal mix of political and social tales. But people were still interested, especially those who had been to the event and seen Lang Lang's surprise dare. When a blurry picture started going around the internet, that interest changed into a guess. It shows Prince William playing the grand piano in a room with a window at Kensington Palace. The view from the side made it look like it was taken from far away, probably with a zoom lens pointed from Hyde Park across. Even though the picture quality wasn't great, it was easy to tell who the subject was. William looked like he was totally in the moment. His sleeves were rolled up, his head was bowed, and his hands were on the keys. The picture wasn't meant to exist, but as soon as it did, it went viral. Right away, news outlets picked it up, and each had their own opinion on what it meant. The headlines were funny and serious at the same time. Some were more dramatic, like, "Prince gets ready for royal showdown," and "Future king takes the stage." Some people were less sure. Royal PR or real talent? The tabloids had a great time with this story, and some even set up betting pools to see if William would actually do the show. Kensington Palace still hasn't said anything, but their silence has only added to the story. The rumors got stronger. People on social media loved the idea and made memes, spoof videos, and hashtags like #PianoPrince and #Battle of the Keys. People soon began to wonder not just if the show would happen, but when. The mood inside the palace was very different. Even though they were taught to stay calm under pressure, the staff couldn't ignore the change. Big wooden boxes on delivery trucks showed up. The one that was clearly marked Steinway & Sons didn't leave much room for guesswork. Musical papers and other gear were delivered by courier. There were questions from reporters, but the formal answer stayed the same. No comment. William, on the other hand, didn't care about what the media was saying. He did what he had to do every day, which included meetings, events, and trips to the public. He shook hands, smiled for the cameras, and gave talks, but no one could see what he was really doing. But he made time to practice in between every event. 10-minute breaks turned into 20-minute ones. There were meetings late at night that went into the early morning. His assistants started making changes to his plan to fit the new routine. He kept the piano in his life even when he was on business trips. William is said to have used the fold-down tray on the plane to do finger exercises while on a state trip to Northern Ireland. Later, someone on the flight crew said they heard soft classical music played through his headphones. People at a diplomatic dinner saw him tapping the bottom of the tablecloth quietly in the shape of scales. The behavior wasn't flashy, but it was constant, which was telling. Catherine became both a witness and a friend at home. She didn't get in the way of the lessons. Instead, she watched them from afar. She brought him tea sometimes. Sometimes she did nothing but watch as he worked over and over on the same part of the puzzle. There was a very bad night, so she put a note next to the piano that said, "You're not doing this for them." She told William, "You're doing this for her." He didn't have to ask who she meant. The kids, especially Prince George, also saw the difference. William smiled and said, "Because even grown-ups have dreams, buddy," when he was asked why his dad had piano homework after bedtime. It was the kind of answer he wished he'd heard more often as a kid. It felt less like a task, and more like a return to something deeper and more personal, for the first time in a long time. The outside pressure was still getting worse. Not all the attention was good. Some people on social media shared a fake video that mixed shaky footage of William practicing with silly piano sounds. Some people liked the video, but others didn't. Different people thought it was funny or unfair. William didn't answer. He had to pay attention to more important things. At the same time, words of support started coming in thick and fast. Letters came from all over the UK. Older women who used to play the piano in village halls. Teenagers who were inspired to learn an instrument for the first time, and veterans who said that William's quiet persistence made them think of their own problems with self-doubt. Someone who used to teach music in Devon wrote, Thank you for showing the world that it's never too late to start over." The letters were read and admired, but sometimes they weren't made public. In the middle of all this, Lang Lang did an interview with the BBC that was shown on TV. He kept his cool when asked about the show at the Royal Albert Hall, but he let a small smile slip through. "I have to say," he said, "I was shocked when the prince said yes. There needs to be guts, and maybe a bit of recklessness." When asked if he thought William had a real chance, Lang Lang paused. He answered, "Let's just say the stage is a great equalizer." That video clip quickly went popular. Some viewers thought Lang Lang's words were polite, while others thought they were rude. In either case, they made people even more excited than they were already. Sir Edward watched the interview from inside the house and is said to have laughed and said, "Reckless, is it? We'll show him how careless he is." However, William didn't show that he was mad. He just kept going. Things got tougher in the lessons. Sir Edward started to teach creative dynamics and improvisational exercises. He told William, "Lang Lang will play like a machine. You have to play like a man." It wasn't about being perfect technically. It was a truth that hurt. The mood in the palace became more focused as the performance date got near. There was no final practice run and no media build-up planned by the relations team. Behind closed doors, everything stayed the same. Catherine continued to be the rock of the family, taking care of everything and keeping her husband from getting too distracted. Along with being his wife, she believed in what he was doing because she knew the real reason behind it. William sat in the music room after a hard lesson. There were only 10 days left until the show. He was getting better at playing, but it wasn't quite where he wanted it to be. William was angry, so he slammed the piano lid shut and left the room early. Sir Edward had said something about emotion being more than posture. That night, he came back to his bedroom very tired. There was a package on the bed, not a real logo. Kate's handwriting only had his name on it. There was an old picture of him and his mother playing the piano inside. Diana put her hand on the keys. She looked like she was about to laugh. A short message reads, "She believed in you," under the picture. "I agree." He looked at the picture for a long time, and his fingers started to shake a little. He went back to the music room by walking down the hall. He didn't play to impress this time. He didn't even get warm. Then he sat down, thought about it, and started to play. Not the written notes, but the ones he felt. The performance and the impact. The date that had been quietly marked on many calendars had finally come around. What started out as a surprise at a charity gala turned into something much more important. What began as a private task turned into a public event. As the sun went down over London, the Royal Albert Hall got ready for an evening that would be unlike any other. Not only would a prince be there, but a man who had decided to break all the rules would also be there. Under the lights, the building shone, and its famous red bricks shone like warm coals. There were artists, musicians, diplomats, royal friends, and curious people from the public on the guest list. They were all there to see something that, just a few weeks before, would not have seemed likely. There was a cautious sense of excitement inside the building. A lot of people didn't know what to expect. They already knew Lang Lang would play. What about Prince William, though? Would he show up? Could he play? William stood alone behind the scenes. The tailor made him a black suit, but it didn't have any medals, ribbons, or royal symbols on it. His title wasn't written on him in any way. At that time, he didn't want to be seen as a future king. He wanted to be seen as a man who was going to do something very personal on stage. On a small table next to him was a picture of his mother, Diana, playing the piano. It had a note from Catherine next to it that said, "She believed in you." I agree. Of course, those outside couldn't see any of that. The host came out on stage to start the show, and the lights went down. And group, a solo cellist, and a choir were the first acts, and they were all well received. Lang Lang came next. As expected, he gave a great show, playing the piano with such mastery that people all over the world knew who he was. the crowd rose to their feet for his third and final solo piece, which got a long, enthusiastic applause. That's where it could have ended, and no one would have been upset. It didn't, though. The lights went down again after the clapping stopped. After a short pause, there was a single announcement that shook the hall. For the last performance of the evening, a duet. People gasped and murmured their approval. That wasn't on the plan. Prince William came out from the wings with a serious but calm look on his face. There was no royal wave or smile for the cameras. He moved slowly and put himself down at a second piano across from Lang Lang. The crowd went totally silent. People who were taking pictures with their phones didn't even make a sound. It was very quiet, which doesn't happen very often in public these days. After that, they played. Clair de Lune by Claude Debussy was chosen because it was both beautiful and vulnerable. It was soft, moving, and made me think. It was clear from the first sounds that this wasn't about being technically perfect. Connection was important between the actors, the audience, and the moment. But most importantly, it was important for William to connect with something inside himself. Lang Lang played a perfect part, but he didn't take over. That was the right amount of softness for William to be heard. William was careful, but his playing showed feeling. At times there was doubt and looking, and at other times there was real presence. It wasn't just playing from memory, they were also playing from how they felt. The crowd didn't start cheering as soon as the last sounds faded. As if to make the silence a bit longer, there was a pause during which everyone seemed to take a deep breath. When the cheering started, it was slow at first, but got faster. It quickly turned into a standing applause. The hall was packed with people cheering not only for the show, but also for what it stood for. Bravery, hard work, and a step into being vulnerable. William stood up, clearly touched, and his hands were still shaking a little. He had Lang Lang standing next to him. Lang Lang bowed to the crowd and gave William a polite look. There was no showmanship. It was a sign of agreement. Catherine was waiting behind the scenes. She hugged William and whispered, "You did it," as he walked off stage. Not for them, but for you. He didn't need to say anything else. It was clear from the look on his face. Even Sir Edward, who is known for having a sharp tongue and being quiet, nodded in agreement. He said in a dry tone, "Well, you didn't crash and burn." It really is miraculous. That night, the show was all over the news, all over the world. Videos of the duo were shared on social media, TV shows, and streaming services. A lot of the comments were good. Critics praised how powerful the performance was emotionally, rather than how well it was put together technically. People of all ages shared how they felt about it. A lot of people found the moment moving, not just because a king did something out of the ordinary, but also because he did something human. While inside the house, it was quiet and very reflective. When William went back to the nursery that had been turned into a music room, it felt like home. The old upright piano was ready, and the G key that had been broken was now fixed. He sat down and played some more. For fun, not for practice or a show, just to play. The sound was soft, and the room was quiet. He found something he hadn't known he had lost in that space, where there were no expectations or pressures. At first, the show was meant to be hard. It turned into something else, though. In many ways, it was a small protest against the idea that royalty is perfect and can't be touched. It served as a warning that even people born into positions of great responsibility have private thoughts, doubts, and the need to be understood beyond their titles. William's responsibilities didn't change because of what he did. He was still the Prince of Wales and would become king one day. But it did change something inside. Before this test, he had been criticized, but never like this. It was both public and private at the same time. By going through that pain, he found not only a new skill, but also a part of himself that had been quiet for a while. Lang Lang was asked what he thought of the show in interviews that came after. "Music is not about being perfect," was his simple answer. "It's about being there." He was that night. At Kensington Palace, letters and texts kept coming in. A boy from Manchester wrote one that said, "I didn't think princes got nervous like the rest of us." "But I guess they do," said an old woman from Wales. "That same piece was played at my wedding. You reminded me of why I liked it." William didn't say anything in public about the news coverage or the comments, but people who knew him well said that something had altered. The piano, which was just an old piece of furniture in a quiet room, had changed into more than that. It was now a sign of honesty, a place to remember the past, and a place where the regal mask could be taken off quietly.